Hey everyone, this is Sean from the Dust Devils. Today I'll be picking up from where we left off last time, by showing how Riding Shotgun's development continued after the MVP. Shortly after the holidays and the new year, we got back to working on the game, and created this build about 2 weeks later. It features a few pretty major changes meant to solve some of the problems we had in the MVP build. Players had trouble noticing their health indicated on the car's dashboard, so we added in a secondary, much more prominent health bar at the top of the screen that they would hopefully be able to spot more easily. This wouldn't last, as players didn't notice it very often either, and the light gun software we used for the arcade edition would create a border around the screen that blocked it from view anyway. We also changed some of the power-ups here, such as finally replacing the smart gun with an early version of the much better feeling LMG, and swapping the Unstoppable power-up with the much more interesting and distinct Shockwave, though at this time it went by the name Pulse. Roughly 2 weeks after this version, we had another new build with a whole suite of changes. Going over the most important ones, we overhauled a lot of the UI elements with a new reticle, a reload warning, and power-up indicators displaying the power-up's name, icon, and how much time they had left until wearing off. Power-up boxes now use these icons to show what was in them. For the power-ups, specifically the weapons, the LMG got a major buff with an increase in ammo, as well as a new ammo counter around the reticle to reflect this. The rocket launcher also got a new explosion effect. We added in rings of fire that the car can go through when jumping off ramps for extra score, and improved the anti-flip systems when doing these jumps to make it even harder for it to flip over when doing so. By this point, we also cut the stalling jamming systems from the game entirely, as we realized just how annoying they were to deal with. We still kept coming up with alternate systems and mechanics to encourage player communication afterwards, but all of these were either too complicated or too resource intensive to implement at this stage of development. You've probably also noticed how horrible the frame rate could get in this build, mainly due to the amount of fire effects present in certain sections of the level, and the hundreds of enemies in it that were constantly active and taking up way more resources than necessary. Optimizing performance became a high priority after this point, which you can see in the next build that marked the game's alpha. This build features our enemy pooling system. Instead of having hundreds of enemies in the level, now there are only around 50, which are continuously recycled by putting them out of and into a background queue whenever they spawn and die, respectively. You can also see that we switched to a new skybox here, to help the flying and larger enemies better stand out from the rest of the environment. On the topic of the flying enemies, their movement has been completely overhauled in this version. Whereas before they would stay in front of the car at all times regardless of where it was facing, here they've been made much more natural, separate from the car but still following along with it and staying close to it. We ditched the upper screen health bar in this build, and instead redesigned the diegetic dashboard UI to be more eye-catching, and better convey that it's showing the car's health. Car power-ups now only appear at bespoke points like gun power-ups do, rather than the flying enemies randomly spawning with them as they did before. To better telegraph when power-ups and other important beats in the level were coming up, we also added various billboards and road signs for players to keep an eye out for. There's a lot more I could talk about, but to keep things from getting too long, I think it's best to call it here. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Up next is the final part of this little series, bringing us from alpha to the final version of the arcade edition in April of 2026. Stay tuned.